A careful, bold hypothesis. Reasonable doubt subversion history. Hello everyone, I Chin Cheaping. Again today to help you subvert history. What today's theme is to subvert it. That is, Puyi, attack Puyi. We all know that he is the Qing, the last emperor. He ascended the throne 3 times and 3 times to step down, therefore top day. Lost his country's flag, but the real Puyi. With our movie Puyi. Whether it is the same image. This is what we want to come today. Well explored. That said, we must first speaking to almost all the subjugation of a country's monarch. That fact is not a single emperor. Or caused by a single time. He usually clusters of long-standing abuse, the cumulative long-term results. The dynasties. Many also have no shortage of natural disasters, before. Have some worries or remote cause. Will cause the fall of the dynasty in the. So we take a look. Puyi Qing took over this mess. In fact, it has faced the same situation. How to say? Before we know what to say, because Puyi ascended the throne in. Early in the morning it was the Empress Dowager Cixi, black smoke barrier is made gas, although the middle emperor hoped to have a bright hope of political reform. But then, or usher in the fall of the Qing fate, the old guard forces because the Empress Dowager Cixi, from which the boycott came up with the coup d'état. So then makes the effort of Guangxu. The charges are completely white, so we look at that. Puyi like this one. Precarious situation of the throne, and has not had time to reign. Ushered in the demise of the Qing. That in such cases, you said Puyi count is. The real lost his country does. Prior to that we have talked to say. There is also a Ming dynasty, subjugation of the famous king, called Yongzheng. Why would it when the Yongzheng lost his? Because he never received. One day Orient House, Prince of Education, in the case of a very hasty. It became emperor. Although the results he has seen problems. Under the decision also immediately. There is to Madame Kuwei Zhongxian kill. But his efforts. Finally, the fee is still white, later commits suicide by hanging in Meishan. So we have to look at that say. That's all for this evaluation Yongzheng. How is it, although we all think Yongzheng a lot of problems, but because he did a lot of effort. So a lot of historians gave him place tremendous sympathy. Call him. Not lost his subjugation of the monarch. So we then take a look at the good Puyi. Puyi opportunities are not a single day reign. Ushered in the fall of the Qing fate. That in such cases, he is the true counted lost his country. This is actually very worth exploring. That said, we know. In fact, before the abdication of Puyi, he actually had no chance one day reign. Later, he actually ushered in the Qing peril. Done a lot of effort. These efforts, we can see one after another. He always wanted to restore the Qing. Like, say, when warlords in the early Ming, Zhang Sun is dealings with those who, that is nothing more than hope that one day restoration. The result was a really successful restoration of Puyi. 12 days later they pulled to step down. So we look at that. Later, the Japanese support him, became emperor of Manchu Qing. The Japanese are disturbed mind good. But when it comes to Puyi, he is not out of trouble. He also wants to cooperate with the Japanese turn. With their power to restore the Qing. But these efforts, it seems to be off the air. Like, say, Puyi wants secret expand his security forces. Because he put these great master. There are a number of people from outside provoke, secret form their own army. But also to the development of nearly 1,000. Later, these security forces is, with the Japanese Guangdong army soldiers clashed. After a fight, Japanese Guangdong army found, Puyi how you have your own security forces. Ordered the dissolution. So you see. In fact, Puyi is good, want to do a lot to restore the Qing efforts. He later even the Japanese in order to keep control. Insisted dominate their marriage. but also to dominate the royal marriage, even then talk to that diplomat's secret contacts. Hope fled to El Salvador, though without success. But we can also see he works as a puppet emperor of Manchu Qing period. Made many efforts. So then, Zhou Enlai once said a word to him. He said, "You emperor when it is 2 or 3 years. Then do not let you in charge. But in the era of Manchu Qing, you are responsible for this." Then Puyi was accused of doing it. Puyi was accused of collaboration with the Japanese, when cast aside all traitors, but you. If this sentence is true, then it is not also relative terms. He made many efforts to restore the Qing. So compared to some of the lost his, did you feel that? Puyi's efforts. In fact, people also deserve full praise, so we do not see him. How's ability to reign in the end? Because there is no opportunity for him one-day reign, but he was restored in the Qing. Made efforts. In fact, for all to see. There is one thing you can see. Qing Puyi on recovery cared deeply about is how. It is said that when he was in his later years, there was one thing to say. That he found Yongzheng suspected of Mijao. Why say it will find Yongzheng Mijao? We all know what to say. Yongzheng Emperor. That his throne in the end have to be positive with errors. In fact, there are a lot of controversy, but Yongzheng ascended the throne after throne. His brothers not very good. Like, say there are 8 brother Yunci. There are 9 princes Yuntang, the 2 men were later imprisoned him up. Has died suddenly died. How the death of unknown cause. Some say he died under house arrest. It was also said that Yongzheng secretly ordered the poisoning. No agreement. But the mystery was accidentally discovered Puyi. This is how it happened. In the original Puyi later in the Forbidden City. According to the abdication of the Qing's condition, he can move along in it. But you must know one's place. Cannot arbitrarily go out, so when he was young. Often with his brother Puyi. This chair is Puyi. Puyi is the next station, 2 people often inside the Forbidden City. Play around with. Anyway, cannot say to go outside well, that we are in the palace inside. See what new stuff. The results of their way came to the hall of mental cultivation play. In the process of slapstick, roof suddenly came some dust. So they looked around curious. Shrines on the wall behind the sudden discovery. As if hiding something. So they took it out of the past. Remove a yellow wrap. They certainly very curious. The yellow paper bag which in the end is what? So they opened it. Inside is an original Mijao. They vaguely know. This command is Yongzheng cases of human government. 8th son with the assassination of 9 princes Mijao, but when they are too young. Do not know what significance to this Mijao. So look at the top are the words. Seems related with their ancestors, but he did not really care. So go back to it later, make it up. Put it back into the wrap behind the shrines. Then when the time of his old age, suddenly aware of the importance of this Mijao. He later had returned to the Forbidden Purple City, some of the palace to ask the elderly, this has not been found wrapped yellow. Everyone told him not to see. And he returned to the place, I did not see the yellow paper bag, so he in his memoirs wants this thing to write into. But because the yellow paper bag gone dead, no check against the. So he think of them again later. Decided to delete it. So then this thing. Not written in his memoirs. But his brother Puyi, in an interview with reporters among. Referred this matter. Okay, so, Puyi also mentioned this matter. Puyi was also righted to come. So to prove this thing. Is there really correct? Are they really have happened to remember? They have found in it a Mijao. Okay, this is true in the end Mijao. We do not know, they might be counterfeit, as it has been dead no check against, something has gone, but you pay attention now, Puyi until old age. Are still recall his past life? In reviewing their actions, He even went to remember a ruling method of the previous emperor. That said, this is not representative of the. He still cared deeply about what you want to restore the Qing. So you see, Puyi, compared to some of the subjugation of the ancient king, it is reluctant to leave after a subjugation. Enjoy the pleasures, then just forget about the country enemies hate. Do not you think Puyi, such as a? In fact, it is also full of admirable. So everyone says that Puyi is the subjugation of the monarch. We do not see him more talented. At most, that is to say he, when a cowardly traitor. But his efforts to restore the Qing made. This cannot be denied. Do not know whether you agree with such a conclusion. Next we look at the character of Puyi. China's last eunuch he called the Sun Yaoting. Sun Yaoting once in his book Inside Qing mentioned many inside private life. Puyi's character and also mentioned suspected Oedipus complex. This is how it happened. We first talk from his mother. Puyi's mother, she is Gur Jiashir. Her formerly known as the Soviet Union finished Gur Gudyulan. Her father, Rong Lu, is the Empress of Military Minister. So she used to be quite prominent origin. Later, because of Rong Lu, she also became the Empress's daughter. But under the Empress Shuhun, her betrothed to Zaifeng. So then she told Zaifeng, gave birth to a son, the eldest son of Puyi. But this we know, said Puyi. Guangxu was seriously ill at the time of Empress were ordered to be brought into the palace upbringing. After that time, Prince Chun government heard the news. The entire house is up and down panic. We do not know what to say. 2-year-old child inside the palace, in the end is what will happen. The results go after. Later it. Mother and little chance to meet again. Since there is no chance that the mother and son meet, so why have so-called Puyi? Oedipus complex it. This comes to his Oedipus complex. Not his mother but his nurse. His nurse Wang Jiaoshi. That's why his Oedipus complex. Wang Jiaoshi who was in, since childhood, Puyi. His nurse is the King Jiaoshi, Puyi in order to relieving pressure themselves in the palace inside. Wang Jiaoshi often mount. And as long as he wants to drink milk, is not to avoid any suspicion of, directly under a large crowd. Arms flew nurse will drink milk. Even to the age of 9. 9 or still continue to drink milk. But who flew Wang Jiaoshi? I want to say milk, then you know what to say in court there, such a large crowd, to this way to let people see the naked flesh. It is really hard to look right, Wang Jiaoshi, so you know how to do it later. In particular, she was Puyi, did a loose robe. So that when Puyi to drink milk, he can put the package into the, among the loose robe, let him drink. Do not let yourself think. Is Bu Cheng tiding like this? But despite, Wang Jiaoshi has done everything but other ladies looked. Still joke Puyi. So then these jokes, these words, reached the ears Toffee. Toffee feel like this utterly indecent. So we ordered expelled from the palace to the King Jiaoshi. Okay, talked about this place. Everyone will feel that, like this to say, Wang Jiaoshi Puyi, speaking for, should it have an adverse effect? But I tell you just the opposite. Wang Jiaoshi but amended. Puyi's twisted character, how you say? Well, because after Puyi Palace, forced to accept the norms of various court etiquette. For the Qing royal prince in fact very much required. Even the so-called dietary restriction is not allowed to let them eat too much. So Puyi, often in a state of starvation often have nothing to eat. Sometimes even, Puyi took advantage of those who do not pay attention. Eunuch, grabbed what food to eat. You know that eunuch, he also forced her mouth forced open, things from the mouth and face of Puyi dug up. This way you can know what to say. In fact, Puyi's life in the palace is not at all unhappy. So which also led to his later. His character becomes distorted, In particular, he grew up a little restless. Those eunuchs would put him into the dark interior of the house, defeated relieve inflammation, said to let him cool down. But a child without a mother in the side. Then accept the child a feeling of confinement. Do not you think this way, it will be a serious lack of security. So a child, he pleases those who have made eunuchs. After growing up and turned bullying these eunuchs. So you know, in the palace there is documented. Record the emperor's words and deeds is called the confidential memorandum, then this living record or confidential memorandum. Inside there is one thing to say, 16th month Xiantong 9 years, often the bamboo cane eunuch. This is bamboo cane whipping means. After over 17. Minister Chen Baochen once plain speaking this thing. However, Puyi remains unchanged, so you shall know that Puyi at this time have developed a eunuch of abuse. A twisted act of. And he was not upset will play eunuch. Happy when he would abuse eunuch. Like, say. Once he wanted to try to say. Whether these eunuchs also listen to this. The abdication of the emperor's own command. So he anywhere. Refers to the underground lump of dirty things to say, to a certain eunuch you gave me eat it. Eunuch there are ways to defy his opinion it. So under the watchful eyes, that really put a lump of dirt in front of Puyi eat it. And Puyi did not stop him. Not only that excessive acts. It is said that once Puyi, that took the fire pump with sprinklers play over there as pentong, the results coming towards an elderly eunuch. So he put the water spray cylinder to the eunuch who shoved spray. The eunuch was sprayed to the time. Did not dare ran, because the emperor is at hand. They have received such court etiquette training, so he squatted on the ground. Puyi think the results. You do not go underground squatting is not. I sprayed you go. He has been sprayed jet has been spray. Spray up to the eunuch fainted. Later is finally being rescued people back. But the two things. You can see it, how heinous acts Puyi really is exaggerated to the extreme. You know the result behind these distortions acts. Who is to find ways to corrected him for advice with you? Wang Jiao sure is. Wang Jiao sure treat him that way. Other people with completely different, because inside the house, Puyi is not higher than the power status. Puyi is lower than. So the higher Puyi would scold him severely. Like, say, or Toffee Empress Dowager. That relatively low status of those eunuchs is the only stuck his life from. Only he will be advised Wang Jiaoshi. Wang Jiaoshi advice and her soft to the care is. She will say that you see, you do not want others to like you how right. So you should not, your people how to shidexia. Wang Jiaoshi Puyi, so the turns for. Instead, give him a good precept with teaching by example. So then, after that Wang Jiaoshi was forced to expel palace. Wang Jiaoshi Puyi gratitude for this, in particular, said passage, let's look at how to say Puyi. He said it now appears the wet nurse left by my side, and have not a person in humanity. If the previous 9 years old, I can nurse from upbringing in. Understand the point of human nature, then, this is human nature after 9 years old, gradually lost. Have you ever feel that you? For this wet nurse Wang Jiaoshi Puyi, in fact bring a very positive impact. Do you have? Puyi said that because, there are 9 before their own humanity, after 9 years old is gone, you see that such an evaluation. How high is the King Jiaoshi? Of course you would suspect says. Is not this the King Jiaoshi, itself is a good family background, the eldest daughter received a good education it. I told you not at. Puyi and he is very curious, asked Wang Jiaoshi. The results Wang Jiaoshi's answer surprised him. How to say, because Wang Jiaoshi was born poor peasants. Year old. Since the occurrence of flood home. So her father took the family. Fled to Beijing. Way because too many people want to eat. Once you want to lose this daughter Wang Jiaoshi. But then could not bear to stay down. Later I went to Beijing after. Winter and spring back over them return home. since the flood would say later, can cultivate good. Sunrise and sunset of, I did not expect at this time, they encountered the Boxer Rebellion. So they fled to Beijing. After fleeing to Beijing it unaccompanied. Fortunately, there are a brother over there in Beijing. So she would seek refuge with her brother. Her brother was there to take her. But in fact he was earning. There is no way burden Wang Jiaoshi, so he sold the later Mary. Wang Jiaoshi married to a runner named Wang. Two had a daughter later in life. The results of this Wang servants actually left, passed away on, died after eating the whole family. All who fell Wang Jiaoshi. You say she is a weak woman, how to get the whole family breadwinner? Fortunately at this time, Prince Chun government posted notices, said to recruit a nurse. So then Wang Jiaoshi went to candidates. At that time the candidates to go along with them, 20 people. The results stand out Wang Jiaoshi. The reason is because she, physical appearance correct mellow milk. But although the government of Prince Chun Wang Jiaoshi pick, when the nurse Puyi, but also gave her 2 conditions. He said I give you 2 pieces of silver a month. But the one, you cannot go home to visit his son with her daughter. Who knows, after you go home, will bring some bad food or germs come. Puyi does not affect the, and secondly is a must eat every day. Not flavored pork. That is what is called pork pig. If you know the pig does not have any seasoning, that fishy oil is also tired of the difficult entrance. Wang Jiaoshi have agreed, and she was such a food that is 9 years. You see there is no exaggeration good. You know the result after 9 years later. Wang Jiaoshi returned home, only to find that his daughter would have starved to death. Why? She had earned money from palace. Her in-laws gave but her in-laws have no extra money. Look for a wet nurse to feed her daughter. Had to give her to drink rice soup. The results of this drink after drink for a long time, died because of malnutrition. But then the news. Chun Prince House does not tell the King Jiaoshi. Wang Jiaoshi grief for fear. Affect the quality of milk. So Wang Jiaoshi was later, after returning to his hometown, to know his daughter already has passed away. You said she would not grieve. In order to keep a Puyi, the results let his daughter, therefore, malnutrition death. So then Puyi has put this wet nurse, in particular, took it to live with yourself. Compensation may also wish. Lactating own. The cause of her own daughter died. This faulted good. Except to say that Puyi had probably beyond the Oedipus complex. It works inside the Sun Yaoting. There is one thing that is mentioned. Puyi suspected was gay. So life has no heirs. Sun Yaoting is how to say what he is saying. Because of the small time, that according to the abdication of the Qing court conditions, they cannot run around. But it is fun Puyi restless age. So toffee will eunuchs. Take good care of them, fortunately, during the day, but at night, no one has the spirit with physical Puyi custody. Then what should we do? So these eunuchs, entrusted to take care of the ladies. These ladies, all age Rulansihu. Puyi and just young and fit. The results did not take long. The two hooked up on the. It is said that after Puyi, a moment of indulgence long day. Later indulgence. Namps Hishi are not interested in the. So then. He returned to play with the eunuch. It is said that this time there is a eunuch. Puyi is very beautiful and with good. The eunuch called Wang 3 children. 2 people hobnobbing. Sun Yaoting thinks as 2 people should have ulterior relationship. So this is one. The second is to say that Puyi had a foreign teacher named Johnston. He is British. This is said to gay Johnston. Puyi with his feelings are so much better. Sun Yaoting thinks so say. This should Puyi with this Johnston. There are also some unusual relationship. Again is Puyi's life without children. Sun Yaoting also believes he should talk about homosexuality. But these three facts, later, each one of them was cracked. How to say? Some scholars go to a good probe for a moment, said discovery, KG room roster in the Qing file inside. Not a eunuch named Wang 3 children. That is to say on behalf of, since no man. Of course, there will be no so-called, may not be normal development of relations, so this is even if there really is a eunuch. Wang called the 3 children well, but this Puyi should take to promote him right. But for now existing inside the Qing archives, we do not see Puyi, which had been promoted a eunuch. So this proves he hobnobbing with the eunuch. This matter is purely fictional. The second is to say his teacher Johnston. His teacher Johnston later returned to his hometown, talked several times in love, all are of the opposite sex, and later also had wanted to commit suicide. If Johnston is really gay, then how will all heterosexual intercourse? The only possibility is that he is bisexual. But even if the case is bisexual, it should be mixed with a few men, right? No results, and the focus is Johnston was with Puyi. Relationship going is good, is heavily guarded inside the Forbidden City. How two people can avoid too many eunuchs' ladies' eyes and ears to do some flirting things. So I think that says the Puyi with Johnston. There are homosexual relations development. This is purely fictional. But why the Sun Yaoting? There's such an argument Sun Yaoting also listened to. I personally think that is. Do you know the ancient so-called culture of food? That food is for the ladies comfort each other. Developed later. There are eunuchs comfort each other with the ladies. Because there is such a behavior. So Puyi could hear monasteries. Also been curious to look at it. With these eunuchs, it may be more beautiful to compare yourself with good. There are some of the more intimate contact, but this intimate contact probably tasted, and therefore did not change his sexual orientation, nor to affect him really become gay. So because he was so curious, and there is such a contact, then try with. You can say it Puyi is gay. But since Puyi is not gay, so why is their life without children due? Talked about this place. In fact, Puyi, from colleagues. Intoxicated from speaking, intoxicated originally KMT Major General. He was later in amnesty after the CCP. When Puyi, together with the Cultural and Historical Commissioner, this is the reason they are colleagues. Later while intoxicated, Puyi relayed to talk about when chatting with his words. His content like this, he said that sometimes 23 ladies. Puyi taught to do bad things in bed. Puyi exhausted the next day. See the sun or white. This time eunuchs and got some of the aphrodisiac. For him, the results of many ladies' face of Rulansihu, gradually he has no interest in this matter. So for some reason this, Puyi explained later. The reason is not interested in Nam's Hishi. However, no interest does not mean he cannot afford But then Puyi is indeed suffering from impotence. Why no? Since then some scholars to study Puyi. Related documents collected, inadvertently got 1962721. Clearly written on top. Patience 30 years ago. When the emperor had impotence, has been seeking treatment efficacy poor. Who smoke? Has been married 3 times no fertility. So from this case history, we can see it. Puyi has been plagued by impotence. Has also been looking all over doctors. But all to no avail. And the truth of such an impotent. Later, also Puyi, 5th wife who has been verified. Puyi's 5th wife named Li Shuxian. Later, Li Shuxian had told reporters interview. Their wedding night. Puyi has been reading late into the night. Day did not touch her, after several days, too. So then cannot put up with Li Shuxian. Directly share the fact that the break asked Puyi in the end is how is it? Puyi only this time he had confessed impotence. That is the fact that impotence. Li Shuxian listened of course, very well done, you told me this marriage not, that to me is not just being a widow yet. Therefore, the spot would divorce Puyi, but Puyi is the Chinese Communist Party's key figures, they also made into a documentary wedding. Li Shuxian a practice like this, then. To become married just finished not long after the divorce, this is more like it is not a marriage lightly. So then referred to the CPC leadership over there, CPC top level of Zhou and Lei, Li Shuxian also looking for this particular speech, he said you do marry Puyi. The whole world knows, please you take care of him, you do not have children, I have so many years of no children do not divorce. When Puyi gave a defender of it, even Zhou and Lei speak. So then Li Shuxian did not dare to divorce. But the CCP later times to find doctors, Puyi wants to find a way to restore glory. All to no avail. So then, Puyi, the history of this incompetent, has plagued his later years. So then good. Puyi in his book, Half My Life is Inside, in particular, wrote some words to Li Shuxian, he says so. My big age infirm. Neither let you give birth Yinanbanv. They did not leave belongings how to do in the future. Meaning that he felt his reason. Yinanbanv of reason cannot give birth, all because of his frail health. That is impotent, or that when he was young, long-term results of indulgence ruined body. Some people think that is to say, Qing Dynasty has always been intermarriage, so which later led to their low fertility. Some people think that to say, Puyi is because when I was younger. 8 Aphrodisiac. Well, aphrodisiac of unknown composition, Puyi led a weak low sperm motility. So this is, no child will be the cause of Puyi's life, and Puyi think they should say. Is the indulgence of his youth? Coupled with eating should not eat aphrodisiac. So will lead to a lifetime without children, so why Puyi's life without children? Not because of homosexual relations, but because he is impotent. So talked about this place. The way to crack. Puyi was gay rumors. By the way also let you know what to say. In fact, Puyi ENG suffering, it also led to his life. The reason Yinanband are not giving birth. Okay, so we again next. Now look. Since he told the ladies, so early sexual relations, that said, we take a look. He is not a bother in the end it's emperor. In fact, the ancient imperial palace has 3,000 beauty, there is no lack of self-proclaimed romantic generation as Qianlong. Puyi is such that people do not count. Does not seem to be? And he's also full of empathy. Despite his suffering from impotence, but he was on the emotional, so how should I say not bother to bring? Let's look at Puyi. 5 good life wife. We look at one by one, Puyi's first wife. He is the Queen Shirley. Her original name was Shirley Guo Cloth Luo Wanrong. Born in Windsor. A young man. Take the good with the poetry and painting looks correct. Between the Qing Dynasty royal fame. After so when my wife and later married Puyi. 2 people start. Also had a full life short and sweet. Why? Because Shirley. Her childhood was influenced by Western upbringing. So, after she married Puyi, but also his own childhood, Western brought life to bring Puyi. She taught Puyi to eat Western food. Write letters love letter written in English. So 2 people start. In fact, life was very sweet, called Jian Flounder wife. But why change it later would give birth to feelings. It is necessary to say that Shirley talked about character, because Shirley's personality is more narrow bigotry. Puyi does not allow for another concubine. Is a good imperial concubine when show so often jealousy. The results of this jealousy go, let Puyi increasingly unhappy, later plus, Wunxiu because they cannot endure life at the court. Offered to divorce. This skeleton in the closet Puyi think to say, because Shirley does not allow Wunxiu. Her exclusion results, so later on to her the more cold. Then to the Manchu Qing period. although the two have Manchu Quo to this place, but this time Pu centerless according going wrong. She paid no attention to the cold. And this time again in Shirley is already a helpless. Japan has faced strict monitoring. Her mind was so great pressure. The brink of collapse. She later gets involved in something so. This habit is smoking opium. So we can note, Shirley's looks actually quite delicate and pretty, quite outstanding temperament, but you see her in times of Manchu Quo. Do not you feel eyes? There has been a little bit of feeling there is no disorder. So then, it is said to annoy Puyi Wan wrong. Because she totally ignored Puyi. Puyi was kind enough guards fornication. Therefore giving birth to a child. It is said that the child was furious to see Puyi direct him up. Hit and killed inside the boiler. So then that's surely insane. Later, Puyi then completely ignore. Even later, Shirley died in prison. The news. After reach the years of Puyi absolutely no reaction. This represents a say. Even then Puyi, not together with Shirley, but he still disappeared from more than hate Shirley. That is because all the acts Shirley let him think it is unpopular with endless. So his wife on this. Later, there is no feeling of. Then we look at the second wife of Puyi. That's imperial concubine Wenxiu. You can note Wenxiu. Her appearance is not very good. Compare Shirley. But do not know why. Puyi is her relatively compatibility. Compare something to say. So Wenxiu with Shirley. Mutual quarrel jealousy when. In fact, it's usually Puyi. Wenxiu will stand here a little, but later. Wenxiu one to suffer exclusion Shirley. And secondly to find this much monitoring. With much pencourt life. She cannot stand, so she later accepted the recommendation girlfriends, newspaper divorce. And the reason for divorce is really very exaggerated. She once asked to write a letter to the lawyer's letter. On top of the very start to write. Mongolian emperor 9 years not a matter fortunately, this is what you mean. This means that when a Wenxiu Puyi's wife. Even day without sharing a bed too. That is, 9 years after Wenxiu, still retrieve their body of. So this is the side that reflects. Puyi is the fact that impotence, so then this thing blow up after. You know Puyi really feel embarrassed and who wants to be his own people no ENG. It also made public. So you know later, after their court, Puyi immediately ordered reconciliation with her lawyer as soon as possible, want to trivialize to nothing. Later Wenxiu also made her say conditions. She must pay a monthly alimony 150,000 yuan. Later there is bargain immediate concern than 50,000. Later, Puyi does not want her to go on disputes. Smooth divorce. After the divorce, Wenxiu said to develop good, but the two men later. Never a good connection. So it was with his second wife's fate. Come see Puyi's third wife. Puyi's third wife, called Tan Yuling. Because after Shirley mental disorders. The Japanese have been looking. Japan to find a wife for the Puyi, well controlled. Puyi is not too. So then introduced via royals, it introduced a. Only 17-year-old Tan Yuling. Puyi looked like day. She called Xiang Put elegant. His feelings with this elegant Chung very good. Because of this beautiful young Tan Yuling. She's a naive romantic. Puyi to bring a lot of comfort. But two married 7 years passed away. When it died. But died in. Japanese doctors in the process. So Puyi has been very skeptical to say, the Tan Yuling died at the hands of the Japanese. So he later after the death of Tan Yuling, bear in mind constantly, also special play Daician, Tan Yuling want to summon the soul. This is how it happened. In fact, Puyi is a young. Inside the Forbidden City once played Daician. Later, after the death of Tan Yuling, he suddenly remembered, when he was young his own play Daician. Want to say give it a try, see if I can find Tan Yuling. to ask to see how she flies. By the way, also asked her death. So later said one night, he found a few people close together to help Dacian. Puyi, he did not go to play, but he was watching them. This dish has to move. But how to move is not a sentence. This is true for several days. This represents a say. He had no way to successfully call Tan Yuling's soul back. But even so, Puyi is still very miss Tan Yuling. He is said to tan Yuling's hair with nail, as well as the photograph to his wallet. And behind the photo, also wrote a word to say, "My dearest Jade Age." So he can be seen on the Tan Yuling. Is a sincere love. The next good. Speaking Puyi's fourth wife Miss Li. Miss Li Han Chinese woman was a civilian. Why does this civilian? Because after the death of Tan Yuling, just under Japan's behest, he had married Miss Li, because look at this Miss Li Puyi, looks pretty good, you can see her. Surely does not lose face right temperament, quite correct. So then marry this Miss Li. Miss Li was only 15 years old, but the marriage of two people not feeling well. Probably because Puyi, under the Japanese repression, that pressure is too large, so often punched and kicked on the costume. 2 years later, well Manchu Qing to death. Puyi was taken away by the Soviet Union, and Miss Li fled to the countryside. Hide more than a decade, Puyi was to wait until after the CCP amnesty. She also specifically to see Puyi's side. Why to want to see him, as is to divorce. So 2 people later, after the divorce proceedings, on various irrelevant, so she and Puyi's fate, will stop here. Next will come again talked about, Puyi's 5th wife. That's Li Shuxian. This is Li Shuxian Puyi they seek for themselves. He will find a Li Shuxian to say is that Li Shuxian personality he liked, and secondly also because Li Shuxian is a nurse, he could feel the rest of his life to take care of their own. So he later wrote some words to say Li Shuxian. I was at the palace when should understand the relationship between husband and wife. My wife is a plaything with furnishings. Was later to meet you. Before we know the world there is such sweet things exist. So this represents a say. Although he and Li Shuxian, nothing very essence of sweet sexual relations, but 2 people love life. Is really attachment to each other mutual support. And this really is his favorite Li Shuxian. So his favorite woman. I think we should correct that Li Shuxian. Of course you will ask. That Puyi to his former wife. Is how to treat it. Puyi himself in his memoirs also speak. I have had 4 wives, essentially speaking, they who is not my wife. They are just a decoration, so this proves say. Puyi think these 4 women, because they are the emperor's aura comes, not really like him as a person, but really only loves him as Li Shuxian. So he is particularly good for Li Shuxian, seen in this light, Puyi for their love life. Has its own set of selection, and he totally do not bother, because this 5 appointed wife, in addition to almost the beginning of the one show outside with Shirley, others are successively marrying, Puyi look like this. Seems emotionally also considered specific right, followed by to Puyi talked about a woman with no chance of that's been hailed. The most beautiful princess in the late Qing Wang Mintong, she was hailed as the modern Zhou Ziyu. Then you can notice that Wang Mintong looks super is beautiful. She formerly known as Wan Yen Li Tongqi. We can note say. Second from left is Wang Mintong, she was brought up right Meyer and Peasy. Her cousin is Shirley. So she first met Puyi. The wedding is over, she saw such an imposing appearance looks like Puyi, later, impressed by her. It may be gradually grew up. This impression later transformed into admirers. So she always wanted to marry into the royal. That she was engaged to someone with AIXI Jiaoluo. The results came the man was having an affair with actor. So Wang dismissed. After dismissal, Wang Mintong's second marriage. In times of Manchu Qing, after the divorce because Puyi, hoping to find a royal woman to remarry, he phase Wang Mintong has become almost finalized the The results from the Japanese meddling allowed to marry. The results Wang Mintong's second marriage. This fall, just like that, all the way to a 5-year-old wasted. Consultations Mount 50 years old. Why something to do with it? Any connection with Puyi? It would have talked to say. Puyi was the CCP after amnesty. Mrs. Wang hosted a dinner to invite him to dinner special. During the meeting, Wang Mintong also constantly urging people to drink. Puyi may be drunk bar. Happy to laugh about this Wang Mintong. After he left the results, etc., Wang Mintong on wishful thinking, unrequited love up. She pipeline through various. Puyi hopes to re-invite to dinner. Puyi are reluctant to the, because do not want to talk to Puyi. Royal women's is something to do. And even then the Wang Mintong go to the hospital to prove the diagnosis to open virgin. Hoping to prove his innocence of the body. Allows Puyi accepted. Puyi did not therefore tempted. So then Puyi really cannot stand. Say you told her not to come again. You get out. It is said that Wang Mintong cry. Never go to this Puyi. Many people will be curious to say, why would not like Puyi Wang Mintong? Because Wang Mintong so beautiful, right? Puyi they have to say. He said I like simple people. But she impressed me enough steady. It would be difficult to live together. She's not my favorite person, but the Emperor Puyi. This also echoes his impressions of his former wife. That he thinks these women. All because of Emperor from his own aura. See is their position. Rather than their personal qualities. So he thought says. These women are not willing to accept his. Seen in this light, then so, in fact, Puyi, he still has the ability to self-examine a set of. He had a dogmatic view. I do not know so much variety of Puyi finished today. Are we also to subvert the perception of Puyi? A careful bold hypothesis, reasonable doubt subversion history, Xin Qiping subversion history. Hello, we see you next time.